My spouse believes I'm cheating and takes drastic action. My spouse and I welcomed a child last December. It was a difficult delivery, and my spouse suffered from postpartum depression. Although she had intended to return to her job following the birth, she faced such challenges that we chose to postpone until our daughter reached 1 year old and reevaluate. She attended therapy sessions each week. With my spouse staying home full-time, I needed to put in extra hours at work. This was a topic we covered before deciding, and she was aware of it right from the beginning. A few weeks back, my supervisor offered me a task that involved substantial overtime over a brief period. It was lucrative and advantageous for my professional growth. I discussed it with my spouse, and she consented that I should accept it from my supervisor. For those 4 weeks of the assignment, my mother-in-law and her close friend, Jessie, stepped in to assist with some responsibilities I usually handled. Jessie was a homemaker with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. She started visiting during the day and supervised the children alongside my spouse. 3 weeks into the assignment, it was evident we'd require a couple more weeks to complete it. I returned home that evening and conversed with my spouse about it. She indicated she was fine with it, but became quite withdrawn in the following days. It was atypical conduct over recent months, so I didn't dwell on it much and attempted not to interpret it personally. In the final week of the assignment, I arrived home one evening and noticed Jessie was still there. I didn't give it much thought, greeted her and my spouse, then headed to see our daughter. Before reaching her room, I caught Jessie saying something along the lines of, "He doesn't even pause to acknowledge me," clearly an indicator. I turned back and inquired what it indicated. Right away, my spouse began sobbing, and Jessie charged me with infidelity. She claimed I must despise my spouse due to her postpartum depression and that I'm no longer drawn to her because of the weight she put on during pregnancy. None of this was accurate. I've been doing everything possible to support my spouse through her depression while providing for our family. Jessie then insisted on checking my phone. I refused her. She stated that was proof of guilt. I informed my spouse that I'd allow her to view my phone if she wished. She nodded, and something within me shattered. I suppose it was the realization that she truly thought I was unfaithful that affected me deeply, and that she lacked trust in me after all we've endured. Well, she examined the phone, and there was nothing incriminating. Jessie began asserting that I'd erased the proof. She started yelling and awakened our daughter, so I instructed her to leave the house. She eventually departed, and I went to soothe our daughter since my spouse remained on the couch weeping. Once our daughter was asleep again, I sat with my spouse and attempted to discuss recent events. She revealed she'd been anxious since I began the overtime. I reminded her that we'd talked about what a great chance it was, and she had agreed to me accepting the assignment. She mentioned it was highly suspicious that the duration of the assignment had extended. I explained that such things occur at times. She demanded further proof, so I displayed messages and emails with time stamps from work, along with pay records showing the overtime. She said she trusted me and apologized for questioning me, and it was Jessie who had been convincing her these were all signals of cheating. I questioned why she trusted Jessie over me and why she hadn't approached me with her worries. She lacked a solid response for that. A few weeks went by after that, and the assignment concluded at last. Near the end of the assignment, I'd reduced the workload I was handling so I could dedicate more time to my spouse and daughter. But despite all that effort, I couldn't shake the exhaustion from attempting to repair our strained bond. Was it improper to harbor some bitterness, because deep down I realized my spouse didn't trust me? I pondered what might occur the next time I had an assignment, or if I needed to handle chores one day, or if there was a work trip. Would I return each time to claims of infidelity? I attempted to raise it a few times, but my spouse said it wasn't the moment and that she was weary or downcast. I tried to consider her emotions, but I wondered if that implied I could never express any of mine. I approached my spouse and informed her I planned to seek a therapist. I didn't link it to her allegations or anything. I simply stated I was struggling and required therapy. She shrugged and said to proceed as I wished. The following day, I returned from work, and the house was in total disarray, items scattered all over. I didn't spot her, but I heard our daughter crying in her room. My spouse had abandoned her unattended, and her mobile was switched off. I contacted my in-laws and some friends, but nobody had seen her. I grew concerned and phoned my mom to check if she could watch the baby while I searched for her. Before my mom arrived, my spouse appeared outside with Jessie. She was obviously distressed and had been crying. I was completely baffled. I initially thought the house could have been burglarized. She began shouting at me that I was disloyal and that the therapy was a cover to meet my lover. I tried to pacify her and assure her it wasn't the case, but she lunged at me and struck me squarely in the face. My nose fractured. She sort of comprehended what she'd done and sat on the couch, becoming unresponsive, just gazing at the wall. I entered our daughter's room and secured the door. I called my mom to update her on the incident and my mother-in-law, whom I requested to come and attend to my spouse. I prepared a bag for our daughter, and when my mom arrived, we departed. My spouse didn't even glance up. We left our daughter with my dad and then headed to urgent care for my nose. I got blood all over my mom's new vehicle. Our daughter and I remained with my parents for some time, and my spouse stayed with hers. I've reflected on it for a few days, but this partnership is likely finished. I cared for her, but I couldn't coexist with someone who injured me and who might harm our daughter. I haven't pursued divorce yet, hoping my spouse would receive the care she required and we could resolve matters. My in-laws informed me they were considering inpatient care at a nearby hospital, but I also recorded everything in detail for a possible custody dispute. My heart ached because I recognized this wasn't truly my spouse. It was an illness affecting her thoughts, but I had to ensure our safety and grant her room to heal. On Sunday evening, she arrived at my parents' home and insisted I hand over our daughter because she had left her unsupervised for hours the previous time she was in charge and had become violent with me. I declined. I suggested she enter and spend time with her while my parents and I were there, but she refused and wanted to take our daughter away. She was distraught but departed eventually. A few hours later, she crashed her parents' car into a tree and passed away. Just like that, she was no more.